spring training is a great example because it's 7 weeks long,
Mm-hmm.
and there's only a couple of real meaningful storylines. Okay, and if
Right.
you like
Exactly.
your situation is probably similar to what the Yankees had this past spring with Anthony Volpe, right? Going through spring
Exactly.
training,
Yep.
and okay, like yeah, you're not going to find out the answer till the end of spring,
Right.
but
But the
there
people want to
aren't
hear
very
it.
many different ways to ask that question every day, and it's the only one that really kind of matters, right?
Yep.
Like you can't tell you can't tell another part of that story that is meaningful. Everybody just wants to know, is he going to make the team? Is he going to make the team? Is like,
Mm-hmm.
think of yourselves as fans. When you're watching now as fans, think about the things that you want to know. We're the ones trying to find different ways of just getting that story across, or trying to ask you different ways. And I told David Wells this one time when we were talking about interactions with media, and I said, David, I'll be the first one to admit that we don't always ask great questions. However, you don't strike everybody out.
Ooh, I
It's
like
like
that.
we mess up too.
Of course.
I probably asked a ton of dumb questions once in a while. Okay, but like we're kind of live in the moment, and everything isn't scripted. You know, I always tried to go over in my head constantly how to ask a question because the answer is what I was after,
Mm-hmm.
right? It wasn't about trying to sound like you're asking a tough guy question. It was simply about getting the correct answer because you're the one the fans want to hear from. So, I said, David, listen, I don't always ask great questions, but you don't strike everybody out.
Yeah,
That's a
that's
great way of putting it.
yeah.
And like when I watched the captain, was Derek good at interviews? I mean, I know he always had the right answer to say, but it was very blunt. Like for you, does that give you a lot into how you're going to present the story? Or he's very
I
blah with everything,
I
which is you
never
have to
minded
be.
that, honestly, Mike. I never minded that because he was always very giving of his time,
Mm-hmm.
right? And he was always very polite answering questions. He'd tell you what he'd say. Now, it came across as blah because it didn't, maybe generate the right headline or whatever it
Yeah.
was. But after a while, I always remember people, we walk away from a group, and one reporter would always, who didn't do it all the time, he'd sit there and say, "He didn't really say anything, did he?" I said, "It's not the point." I'd say, the point is, you're going to put in your story, Derek Jeter said, quote, blah, dot, 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 dot. And that's it. And you don't, and the story is now right. The story is
Right.
now correct. And the story is not something that people will read because he said it. You know, okay, he didn't splash the headline for you, but guess what? He's Derek Jeter. Whatever he says, people will be interested in hearing or
So true.
reading or whatever. You're going to stop to read what he said, even if at the end of it you said, "Oh, okay, that's all." Doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
He said it. He's Derek Jeter. It's always going to be part of your story.
Yeah, I also want to say if Derek was ever watching this, I never meant he was blah blah. Derek, you're my favorite. I never called you blah blah.
Uh,
Speaking of Derek Jeter, is there you have any stories of your interactions with him that are funny or legendary stuff like that?
I listen. I got along very well with him. I think as maybe I got along with the Walls as maybe a reporter is allowed to do. But,
Hmm.
we don't. It's not like we became best friends and hang out. You spend an hour in the clubhouse before a game, and then after, and then you do that over the course of what I had him for 14 years. And you just kind of have interactions, and I had plenty of fun conversations with him. We'd always talk college football. He's a Michigan guy, I'm a Penn State guy. We'd have
That's a
some
good one.
fun trash talking about that. And uh, I, I think after a while, what I told you earlier about just kind of going about my job and letting that kind of speak to it, I think he kind of saw that too, and he ended up treating me with a great deal of respect, and I gave it right back to him.
Yep.
So I think we had a good relationship for those reasons. I will tell you a funny thing is that like he hated like like he always thought you were jinxing him, right? If you want to talk about hitting streaks or winning streaks and things like that, it'd be hard because he'd always think that you were jinxing it. And one time in particular, this was 2002, my second year, and Alfonso Soriano had gotten off to a great start that year, right? Um, and Soriano's batting leadoff, Jeter is batting second. And about a week into the season, we're in Toronto, and I noticed that like Jeter's had like 30 at bats. He hasn't struck out yet. Going, wow, like it's pretty impressive, right? Well, dumb me decides to go up and ask him about it that day. So I said, oh, like I said, and I was framing it like I don't know, like Soriano's gotten on base a lot. Are you seeing more fastballs, like early in the count, things that you can, you things like that. Maybe they're not,
Makes
whatever.
sense. Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, it's not totally
Yeah,
out
that
of
makes
whatever,
sense.
right? So, um, but he knew exactly. I said, because you usually strike out like 100 times a year, right? He goes 99 last year, and he was right. Right? It was 90. It was exactly 99. He
Wow.
knew the number. Okay, all these guys, and you're among them too. You say,
Oh
"Oh,
yeah.
you don't know your numbers." You always know your numbers.
Yep.
You know every one of your numbers,
Yep.
and you know other people's numbers too. So
Yep.
when we try to corner you on that, and you lie to us and tell you don't know, I see right through that. Okay,
Yeah.
so we have that interaction, and I think he might have said, I can't remember if he did this or not, but he might have said, I probably will tonight now that you bring it up, right? Um, no lie.
First at bat.
I think Halliday's pitching that night, right? First time up, whiff. And I just went, oh. Second time up, whiff. Oh. So they win
No
the
way.
game. I go down after the game. This is in Toronto. And he says, he looks at me. They won the game, so he's in a better mood, right? One guy who I swear always 0 for 4, they win, no problem. 4 for 4, they lose, he's wearing it, right? Like it's all about the result for him. So they win the game, and he walks by me, and I just said, "Yeah, that was my bad. I'm sorry." And he said he said, "Don't think I wasn't thinking about you either."
You can tell your kids that.
The next night, you can look this up. It's the series in Toronto, a week into the season in 2002. The next night, he strikes out 3 times.
Oh gosh.
They lose the game, and I'm just like, I don't say a word to him, right? And now he walks by me again. He says, "I ain't talking to you for a month."
That's good.
But
man,
every time after that, like somebody would ask him about, like we'd be in a group around his locker, and somebody would ask him about it, like a hitting streak or something,
Don't talk to
and
him.
he'd lock eyes with me, and I'd go, "Hey, wasn't me, man. I didn't do
Yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah.
I know better."
Yeah, that's perfect.
I have a question that you brought up at Yogi Berra's golf tournament at the hotel. I
Yeah,
want to
yeah,
see
yeah.
if you want to tell that story.
Yeah, I said I always remember like I remember LJ's name and his sister's names because of every once in a while, like when we stay in the team hotel, by accident you'd get the room list for everybody else, for the team members. Like I was on the media list, and I would be in the hotel. But every once in a while, like in your room key list, they when they give you your room key, they would slip you the list of the players. It was never their names; they were always under aliases, right? So you never knew.
Right.
But sometimes you could figure out an alias if people weren't creative enough. And
My dad.
I don't know, should I say it? Is it like he's gonna, like, nobody stays in the hotels anymore with their, nobody calls hotel phones anymore, right?
Yeah,
This
you can
was
say it because
you can say it.
he's not doing that anymore. Yeah,
they
he's kicking back in Florida now.
he was uh he was LJ Genlace was his alias. And like it was, when you knew who they were, then it was easy to figure out. But if
Yeah.
you're just, and the reason it became was part of like my previous job as a producer. A lot of times you would call before everybody had cell phones. If you wanted to call people, you'd call them in the hotels when they were on the
I
road.
was just gonna
Yeah,
say
yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah.
You'd call the hotel, and I'd just call the front desk. I'd say, "Michael, please,"
Yep.
Yep.
and they would ring your room,
Yep.
right?
Got it.
But
As a kid, we'd have to do that to stay in touch with
Yeah, I
pops,
get it.
and
That-
we would call him from the house phone. We would call the hotel and say, "Hey, can you connect us to the room LJ Genlace?"
yes,
Yeah.
and sometimes people would have, sometimes somebody would Roberto Clemente. You're like what? And or they'd be they'd be like movie characters. It'd be like Ace Ventura
Yeah.
Oh, that would be mine.
would be somebody's alias, and um, I- it's
I wonder if anyone used Derek Jeter as their alias just so they can get phone calls.
I always thought, man, I wish I would want to do that. Like I'd want to do that sometimes.
Just to
and
see who
what
calls
kind of
you.
phone I get. Yeah. But I'd have to do it with his permission probably.
Yeah.
But it's now like nobody even answers their hotel phones anymore anyway. But that was we
Yeah.
used to. But when we'd get people on the radio, we would call up and say, I'd ring you like if you LJ if you went 4 for 4 right and hit a game winning homer and you were like in wherever city you were in, luckily if it was on the road and I wanted to get you on WFAN, I'd wait like an hour after the game. I'd call the hotel phone. I'd ring up your room and say, "Hey, it's Sweeny Murti from WFA in New York. How you doing?" And sometimes people would like get out of here, right? Other times, people were great. And I remember John Smoltz the night he won his 20th game in 1996. Called up, damn, there he goes. And he's obviously media friendly. He's on TV all the time now, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Tom Kelly, the Minnesota Twins, I remember was a terrific guy. Anytime that that they were on a winning streak or anything like that, or just you'd always look for people. And when you were working night shifts like I was, you wait for people on the West Coast or coming home from night games and just try to get people on the radio. David Cohn was another who was amazing. You'd call us out. You call us in the room. You go, "Hey, how you doing?"
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and he'd come on the radio. It was a different time to do that. It was a lot of fun.
The story I wanted to talk about was, and I'll never forget this. I think it was 2012. There was the trade deadline. WFAN. They get a call from Brantford, Connecticut, to you about Mike Olt. I want to go over was it the
Wait,
WF
say it again?
the skit, the Mike Olt skit that you had.
Oh, that one. That wasn't me. Yeah,
That wasn't even
it was somebody who won. It was a fan who called into our morning show. It was Craig Carton was on.
Oh, got it.
And a fan called in and he wanted either the
We gotta
Mets
get
or
this
the
clip.
Yankees, whoever needed a third
It
baseman.
was
at
the
time.
Mets. I think it was the Mets.
It was the Mets, right? Yeah. And wanted him to, I guess, what David was hurt probably, and
Yep.
they wanted them to trade for. It was an older gentleman, and he knew that you had local roots, and he said, "I want to. I know who they should trade for, Mike Olt." And the way he just kind of said it, it was almost like one word, right? So, and then
Yep.
Craig, in his radio genius, kind of turned this into a "Who's on
It was
first" bit,
perfect.
and he said, "Michael who?" No, Mike Olt.
But the guy didn't catch
Michael
on.
who?
He just kept going.
I kept getting angrier and angrier. And he'd say, "Michael," and Craig just said, "Michael who?"
So good.
And we got to see that. We got to pull that
We'll
up on
pull
this
that
podcast.
clip up because
Yeah.
I think we did some research. We think we know who it is. But
Oh, really?
yeah, I think I do.
Okay.
He's like a huge Brantford guy that he actually has a daughter near my age. So I would love to find out if it was him too, because he would every like Facebook message and just send me, "Hey, you're doing great. Hey, trade deadline here.
You're
Hey,
from
Google
Brantford?
alert." Yeah.
I think I have spent some time. I don't know if it's still there. I have spent some time at the Q and Brew. Is that still there?
Cuban Brew, yeah. That is there. That's up on the hill. Yeah.
Okay.
Cuban Brew. If you ever come back.
Well, I mean, both of you guys know Dom Amore from the Hartford Courant.
Yeah, Dom's
course.
great.
Love
Dom was on the Yankees beat when I started.
That's
Became
right.
great friends with Dom. Obviously, covers a lot of UConn. You guys
Yep.
know him. He's been working there forever. Dom lives in Brantford, and his friend Joey
Oh,
ran the
nice.
Q and
Yeah.
Brew. So I went up there a few times.
Yeah, I did a couple interviews with Dom at Yankee
love
Stadium. He's a great guy.
Yeah.
He wrote like maybe 4 stories on me when I was in the minors.
Mm-hmm.
I really appreciated that. He always took care of me, even at UConn. He would like we would do interviews, and maybe I would say something wrong because I was still like young and learning, and he would say, "Hey LJ, you don't want to say this, but just keep it around this." And then he wouldn't write what I said. He would look out for me.
Yeah.
There you go. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
That's it.
We used to get so nervous for those interviews.
Yeah, because you always
It would
try to
ruin my
say the right
day.
thing, and then you end up saying the wrong thing.
Really, really.
When I was in high school, when I was at
at
college, I talked to Coach Penders. I said, "Coach, all these interviews, like it ruins my day because I don't know what to say, and I'm so nervous." So then you fast forward like a year, and it's like, "Oh yeah, come on in, whatever you guys want to talk about." But he's like, "Practice. It's just repetition and getting comfortable. That's it. You'll know what to say."
That was the
Yeah,
thing with
you know,
Springer too. Springer had that big
Yep.
stutter,
Yep.
and he just did more and more and more and more
And then,
until
yeah.
now it's like second nature for him, especially for someone who's had to work on a stutter for
Right.
so long of his life, to be able to do interviews like this now on a national scale, and have comfortability is pretty. It's a testament to where he's come
Absolutely.
and where he is now.
yeah, Johnny Damon's the same way. You know, Johnny told has talked about like having that same issue, but you know you have a conversation with Johnny, and it's very easy
Hmm.
once you start talking to him.
Yeah.
It is a testament to them because they had to work at it. It's not easy.
I will say, with what I'm doing now in real estate and title insurance, I have sales meetings once a month, in person, and on Zoom every Tuesday. And I've now stepped into a role where I have to public speak, and I've played in front of 30,000 people before. I've done interviews, and everyone sitting down with their notepads out, fine, because I'm talking about baseball. It's something I've been around my whole life. Now, for the first time, when I'm talking about real estate and giving my pitch and title insurance and the added value we have, I just, out of nowhere, my chest just gets completely tight, and then I can hear my voice just like getting higher, and I'm like, what is happening to me? I've never felt this before.
And it'll go away.
And so today I had another Zoom, and it went well.
Yeah.
But it took me 3 or 4 of these experiences to choke up like this and watch everyone look at me like, is he going to throw up or something like that? and I finally got over it. So it just takes more practice, I guess. Same thing with golf. You know what I'm saying? Like, what I'm saying.
And it's yeah, it is different. It's funny because there's an old Jerry Seinfeld bit where he says people's number one fear is public speaking.
Ugh.
A survey said number one fear is public speaking. Number two is death. And he said, which means to the average person that if they had to be at a funeral, they would rather be in the casket than give the
Right.
eulogy.
Right.
It's a funny
like
bit
that.
from Jerry, but
Makes sense.
I just always look at it as the luxury I always had was that I never saw the people I was talking to. Right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I was talking into a telephone or into a microphone, or into like just into the camera lens. I don't know how many people are watching or listening or whatever. It's you know you just kind of have to make it personal whatever your own coping strategies are. If you're looking into a camera lens, maybe you picture a friendly face on there that you're talking to,
Hmm.
and it just it makes it a little bit easier. You
Yeah.
have your own techniques.
Yeah, I've heard some advice from people that you open it up with a joke. The only fear of mine is that no one laughs,
Oh my gosh.
and then
you're
it
done.
makes it even
Then you
worse.
just sign off. Just sign off.
Or you do something self-deprecating in the beginning, which everyone can relate to. It
Very
kind of
easy.
like
Yeah.
humbles yourself.
Well, yeah, stand up and be in
So
your
I've
underwear.
been sticking
Like,
with
be in your boxer,
self-deprecating.
yeah.
I don't know if I have a good enough joke yet,
No,
but
just be in your boxers, stand up for a second, then get back down. But hey guys, and with a suit on, just to
Yeah,
see.
yeah, yeah.
Then you're good.
Perfect.
yeah,
Well, let's wrap this up.
good stuff. Yeah. Yeah, appreciate it. Anything else that you'd like to speak about? I know I texted you last week. Any nonprofits or anything you're involved with?
Yeah, wait,
Any
listen, I
charities?
think one of the things, like, I mean, for people who don't know what I'm doing now, I mean, I know a lot of you guys know that I was on WFAN doing Yankee stuff for a long time. I started a job at Major League Baseball in March, working with the social media group there in an editorial role. So follow at MLB on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, all those things, and you'll see some of the things that I get to work on. One of the things that I got to work on stuff that we posted for Jackie Robinson Day and Lou
Awesome.
Gehrig Day and things like that. And Lou Gehrig Day is always very special to me. Lost a friend to ALS just 2 years ago, and it's always been something that's been close to our hearts and our family, and it's and that's just part of it. We get to do the fun stuff too, and on socials where all the plays we post and the highlights we post, and the different captions and graphics and stuff that we get to put up there. It's nice to be a helping hand in that, and working with a really good team on that. I started to branch out into some other things at MLB that I get to do. I wrote my first article for MLB.com last week, which was on Derek Shelton and a unique connection his dad, Ron Shelton, has with the more famous Ron Shelton, the guy who wrote Bull Durham. And so that's on MLB.com. And, some other things I'm going to start to write and get, more on FaceTime, more some podcast opportunities. Those are all coming up as well.
Cool.
So those are all there for me. I'm a little more behind the scenes now than I have been for a long time, but getting some more forward facing projects out there soon, including the one I just wrote last week. So just follow MLB on all your social channels, and we'll see all the fun stuff I get to work on.
That's
Yeah,
great.
definitely. We'll do our best to put all that information up there on this podcast, so everyone can go check you out, and definitely be sure to read that article, guys,
That's
on
great.
Ron Shelton. It's really cool. Sweeney did a really good job tying it all together and making these different connections and these in ironic names. Having an interaction completely out of the blue in a hotel lobby was what I was reading, and then fast forwarding, and his son's the manager of the Pirates. Similar story to. The guy in Field of Dreams,
Yeah,
the
Moonlight
doctor,
Graham. Yeah,
Moonlight Graham. So it's kind of cool that movie came out in the '80s, and you fast forward 20 years, and it's kind of like the same exact story with the son of the guy who got confused as the original Ron Shelton.
Yeah.
Am I getting all this correct?
it's all there. Yep.
Okay.
Ron
All right.
Shelton and Ron Shelton were teammates in 1967 for 2 weeks, and one of them became the guy who wrote Bull Durham. The other guy had a son who became manager of the Pittsburgh Pirates, and
Yes.
I kind of tie that all together into that story, and how they're at their meeting, their first meeting that you talked about, and then kind of reconnecting years later, and kind of this connection that Derek Shelton has a Crash Davis like career, and the irony being that his dad has the same name as the guy who actually wrote
Wrote
about
it.
Crash Davis,
Yeah.
created
Yeah.
Crash Davis, so that kind of thing. So
Yeah.
pretty neat there.
Such a cool story. So yeah, definitely be sure to check it out, guys. And Sweeney, thanks again for coming on. We really enjoyed your stories, and we'll be looking at for you MLB.com.
Thank you guys, appreciate you having me, and hopefully see you again soon.
All
Absolutely.
right. Until next time, we'll see you guys on the lineup.